We have Giri Govindaraju today with us, who is the CISO, which is Chief Information and Security Officer for Cisco APAC. Uh, Hi, Giri. Nice to have you with us today.
Hi Faisal.
Yeah,
Hi
hi.
everyone. Hi.
Okay, okay. So, just before we start, a couple of things I want to for the benefit of audience, I want to kind of share with everyone. First of all, I welcome all of you to this show, which is our first episode on the international series, where we will be bringing you speakers from across the globe who will be sharing their insights about particular topics which we will be talking about. And if you have, we will be definitely having, an opportunity have Q&A directly with the speakers, which we will be taking up towards the end of the session. So what you can simply do is there is a raise hand icon on the right side of the panel, which you can, just you press it, and we will bring you live onto the panel when you want to ask a question. Uh, the topic which we have chosen today is data privacy and security in a connected world. Uh, and just giving you some background, like, we are moving into a different domain now where connectivity and the connected devices, the number of connected devices is definitely increasing. So is connectivity. Uh, and what does that mean is it is opening us up to a lot of challenges, because earlier we only had, say, a laptop or a desktop, and at max, in addition to that, a smartphone. These were two primary connected devices, and most of the times our laptop or desktop would work in an enterprise network, so it was more or less managed. And mobile, yes, we had certain issues. We still face some issues, but that still is manageable. But now, in a connected world, there are so many things getting connected. Right from a speaker to TV to surveillance cameras to so many things. I think everything is getting connected, and this obviously opens up a lot of challenges for us as users, and people like Giri as experts, to keep our networks and us uh, very secure, and the data which keeps on generating every now and then. So to begin with you, Giri, I wanted to understand, like, how has the scenario changed over the past maybe 5 years, okay, in terms of security? uh, what were the key elements which you were looking at, say, 5 years back, in terms of security, and what is that which you are looking at presently? I would request from both perspective, from enterprise as well as end user perspective.
Okay. Thanks, Faisal. So maybe I'll start with a little bit more than 5 years, right? When we had desktops, for example, right? I think the most thing that you need to do is to put antivirus software, and you are all done, right? And that's the best way to protect you and your machine and stuff like that. But unfortunately, a lot of things have changed, and the good thing about is the changes in the technology in the last 10 years. I think I would probably look at it as a decade, right? Has actually enabled a lot of.
Sorry, just a second. I think we lost Giri as well. Okay, Giri is back. Yeah, Giri, I think we lost you. Hello. Hello, Giri. Are you with us? I'm sorry, we lost Giri. He's come. Okay, yeah, he's back. Yeah.
So yeah, I just got an alert saying that I have to click a different link. But anyways,
Okay.
okay. So So I was telling that, in the past, you just have to use an antivirus device in your laptop and you're all, or desktop, and you're all done. But today, the technological advancements actually has enabled us to do a lot more things, right? It's the experience is much better now. You can operate everything from your device. And the same thing with respect to the enterprises. We used to have a dumb terminal which connects to your mainframe or whatever it is. And now with the client server and also with the newer technologies, you can access anything on the cloud. You don't need to have a specific device and things like that. So basically, what has happened is the capabilities that the new technology has brought in has also increased the challenges with respect to security. Because when you have the whole connectivity, there are a lot of things that can go wrong. And when you look at it from the perspective of a security professional, one thing that you need to make sure that happens is the defense in depth, right?
Okay.
If you have to protect your end device, you have to protect the connectivity, you have to protect what is the applications or the data that is being accessed. So part of the problem is that you have a bigger landscape, a threat landscape, and you have multiple vectors of threat that happens because of the kind of connectivity, right? So the good thing is the ability for us to do things has become much faster, and there are tons and tons of examples where technology has made our life much more simpler and easier. You're able to accomplish things, right? If I have to give the analogy of the banking industry, if you have to transact on money, you have to go to the bank, wait for a couple of hours, and do a simple transaction, even for you to check the balance.
Right.
Today, you just show your mobile with your face, and you know the balance. You want to transfer lakhs or whatever it is, you can do it in a split second. The good thing is that, but the bad thing is there are people who are focused on making use of these things, right? And there are bad actors who are motivated because it's easy money for them.
Hmm.
It's easy way to compromise on things, and either they do it in a way that they attack and take things, or they actually can convince you to do the wrong things, and then you fall for it, right? So the
Right.
basic thing that I see in the last decade is technology advancements and the digitization that we talk about is actually really a big um, blessing for the entire community. But at the same time, we have, in the process of solving problems for the future, we have also created new problems that we need
Hmm.
to be aware of.
Right.
And the way we look at it obviously changes, and we have to continue to evolve this so that we are continuously keeping things secure. We do not fall for some of these praise and become a victim eventually. So that would be my take, Faisal.
Okay. Thank you. I think Mishi is connected now. Mishi, are you on? Can you hear us? We can't see your picture yet. We can't see your video. Hi, Mishi. Can you hear us? Hello, Mishi.
I can, I can hear you guys quite fine. I don't know if you can hear me, and I can see my picture as well. So
Yeah,
I don't
we
know
can.
what's going
We
on.
can. We can hear you. I think your video is still not enabled. Can you quickly check if you can please enable your video?
Oh,
So the I could
okay.
just, yeah. I think that's the only thing pending now.
I don't think I can hear you guys.
You can't hear us? Oops. Can you hear us? Hey, Mishi, can you hear us? Okay, I think Giri, we'll have to wait till she
Yeah,
again.
I don't know. There's a lag time as well. There's a
Okay.
really long lag, and
Oops.
your my own voice reaches me like 20 seconds later.
Oh my God. Okay. I don't know why this technical issue glitched today.
No, I
Extremely.
can't. I mean, I can hear you, but my voice doesn't reach.
Okay, we can hear you loud and clear, Rishi. So I just welcome you on the program finally. We are able to hear you. Just to begin, just to begin this kind of episode, I was, just asking Giri how the things have changed in terms of data privacy and security. Oh, we lost her again. Sorry. So Giri, I think, let's see if she's able to join us back. Meanwhile, I wanted to, take you to another area.
Mhm.
So, you know, you give this perspective how things have changed over these 5-10 years. Now, if we look, within the APAC only, okay, at least the areas within the domain where you kind of operate. So, where do you see, like, us still kind of, uh, uh, I would say, so to say, lacking, in terms of data security, okay, as well as maybe network security. So is it that our awareness is lacking, or we don't have systems in place? Where are we still kind of lacking in that?
Okay. So Faisal, so let me answer this question in three parts, right?
Hmm.
So the first one is more to do with people, right? And a lot of times, whether it is the personal or from an enterprise perspective, people form the biggest and the weakest link for everything, right? So it only takes one person to do something wrong, and the whole enterprise can be compromised. There could be breaches, there could be things that will happen.
Hmm.
So the awareness continues to be a challenge, and as enterprises continue to put this in the top of the horizon, the challenge is the demographics of people continue to change. Right, there are new people coming into the company. We keep hiring interns, college hires, a lot of new folks coming in. So you have to continuously keep increasing the awareness. I think that's the only way that you can continue to keep things in a way that's manageable.
Okay.
Second thing I would like to do is talk about is the technology. And most of the times, many companies think that, I buy the most expensive security product in the world, I should be secure. I buy the expensive firewall, I think my problems should be taken care, right? But unfortunately, the reality is, one is about the capabilities. You pay for the capabilities of the firewall and things like that, right? I mean, I'm giving an example of firewall, but it could be for any security product. But the reality is, if you don't configure it right, you are basically going to mess around things, right? You're not going to get the functionality that you would need. And in many cases, these technology can actually help you. Most of them have very, proactive ways that they can alert you. They have predictive analytics. But the challenge is, do you have the time to even go and look into those alerts? If you don't look into and solve those alerts, you are still going to have this problem. And most of the companies, we all go through this vulnerability stuff, right? You look into what are the vulnerabilities in your system. Believe me, none of the companies in the world will be in a position to have zero vulnerabilities, because there are things that keep going wrong. So you need to prioritize what is the topmost thing for you to solve, so that the lower priority continues to be there, right? That you need to choose your battles. So the fact is, as you start looking into technology, you also need to be looking into how these processes are going to help you drive those efficiency. And then the third one, primarily with the data, right? I would sort of say that, we still are learning. I don't think there is an easy answer with the data part. I think we all understand, at least to an extent, what privacy means. But in reality, I think it's going to be a long journey, right? It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not, any number of regulations or legislation is going to solve this problem, because I still feel legislation is more of an afterthought, right? It's needed, but it's not going to solve every problem that we need, that we have. So what is really important is, we need to understand how ethical and how effective are we using the data, right? Even now, as we are security practitioners and things like that,
Right.
how your the personal identifiers are very important. But when someone calls and asks for a birth date, or asks for an Aadhaar number, we generally give it, right? This can be misused. So there are things that even awareness doesn't help. We have done a lot of things. I've talked to a couple of banking security leaders. They have enhanced their systems to be secure, right? Building a robust secure system is important. But what happens is, you have multi-factor authentication, you have OTPs that are sent, but people give away the OTPs, then get compromised. There's no
Right.
way that you can stop this from happening. So I look at it as three parts, right? As I said, right, one is about the people, which is going to be the key factor, right? We all have to, become better at it. And I think this is one vector where the bad actors are extremely, happy because it's a easy money, right? If you have seen the Netflix thing on Jamtara, right? People fall for it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Just take one simple call, people fall for it, and
Absolutely.
they affect the emotional quotient of the individual, right? Irrespective of whatever technology you put, however secure the systems are, nothing is going to help you in that case.
Hmm.
The technology, I think how we use it also makes a huge difference. And of course the last one is in terms of how you really manage the data, because I think the awareness is getting better, but it's not at the level that we would like to see it.
Right. Just I think just 2 days back, I got a same call. Your number is not connected to Aadhaar and all that. You just SMS to a particular number and all those kind of things. But yes, while this is happening, I think we still are somewhere very much hardware focused in terms of security, and we miss at times the software part. Okay. And here I would specifically want to talk about apps, the app ecosystem. We had recently one of the apps very much into the news. But other than that, I think people still don't understand what kind of data an app is looking for, is accessing. uh, do you think that space needs more transparency?
um, I think so the the security aspect from a software is actually getting better, but I think to me it's the human angle which is a challenge, right? I think there are two broader things that I see happening in people, right?
Hmm.
One, even if they're aware of things, there is a general mindset, it's not going to happen to me,
Right.
right? I think that is a very very challenging mindset, because only when you learn the hard way, because you need to learn from others experiences too, right? If you wait
Hmm.
for your money to be lost, it's going to be too late. And the second thing is, we used to have this thing with the marketing jargon, right? Whenever, like, we are more happy to buy a cereal with like a fat-free, organic and this and that, because it attracts people. Like, you go to an app store which says, hey, this is an app which solves all your problems. It will read your mind. You immediately go and download. But what they do with the data is not known to people. And most of the times, I've seen a lot of people who say, hey, who is going to do anything with my data, right? It is
Right.
my birth date. What can people do with this, right? But the reality is, people can correlate to it, right? Because it's not just the name. It's not like, see, if I have to give my example, right? I'm like a highly connected, I would like everything to be connected because I wanted a cool experience. I can call myself as a geek from that perspective. I play with gadgets. So I might have a connected home with with my lock, having a Bluetooth and connected to the web, and I might have a vacuum system connected to the net, lighting system. Now, when you start correlating this information along with my Facebook identity, my Gmail identity, and my the digital identity that I have, there is a lot more harm that can be done to me compared to me looking at it as an isolation, right? Majority of the times, if you know the name of the person, you can pretty much get, like, from Facebook or something like that, which year they passed out of from college. From LinkedIn, you can know which companies they. You can actually create a reasonably fair ecosystem of who this person is,
Hmm.
right? And which basically enables the whole social engineering to act so smart, right? Because you don't need to put so much of efforts. If I call you and say, hey, Faisal, I went to the same college, as you, and you're going to be sort of, more interested. Hey, did you know this? So, and then you land up giving more information than what you are, right? So
Right.
one of the big things that we have to really learn or understand is the information that you are providing outside, because most of them are given by you, not, like, rarely someone takes it, like in the breach people take it, but many times you voluntarily give it, and it can be misused.
Hmm.
So the more you understand, if you're giving information, more information than what you are giving, what you really need, there is a problem. Classic example, in the wishing stuff, right? People call and they say, they are calling from ICSA and they wanted to verify the identity. Can you give your birthday?
Hmm.
First of all, why would a person call you and verify your identity, right?
You're
First of
right.
all, you should be verifying their identity. And we generally give it because there is an emotional connect they make. So the more we are able to look into those things, you will be more accurate and better in terms of making decisions whether it's a software or not. But I will tell you from a from a company perspective, Cisco being leader in the security industry, right? There are two things that are making waves, right? One is in terms of it being a software, and the
Mhm.
second one is we are also doing more of this SaaS, right? The software as a service,
Right.
more of a consumption model rather than put it there and then forget it kind of thing, right? Because the real challenge with security is things keep changing every minute. What you have today, right? Previously, I was giving an example of the antivirus softwares. If you download the signatures every 60 days, you're still good. Today, you can't do that.
Mhm.
You need to be current, and there are zero-day attacks, which are happening, which you haven't seen yesterday, right? A lot of things are happening every day, and you need to be current. So I think it's the mindset of people in understanding what are the challenges and being prepared for it, right? Because it's really bad if it happens to you, and we are seeing a lot of horror stories, where people make a small mistake and they lose a lot of money. And money is a very tangible component, right? There are a lot of things which are not related to money, but we still lose your identity and other things. But money
Mhm.
is certainly a significant component that we need to be looking at as well.
Okay. Before going to the scenario which changes into this connected world, we need to definitely talk about smart cities, smart homes, and all that. We will talk about that as well. But I wanted to get a bit more onto this, this data sharing of ours and all that. So, there is I would say it's a very convenient way of everybody, capturing data, which is like, okay, we have a consent based system. Okay. So I am not capturing anything. I am just, seeking a permission from the person to capture this data, to have this data. But what is the alternative available with the user? I may not want to give the data. Now, if I don't give the data, I am not able to use that service or that application. So do you feel like this consent based system is not really helping us?
Uh, that's a great question. So I think I'm going to look at this as two parts, right? One is if you look into all the data privacy regulations and things like that, right? The whole thing is about what you collect, what you share, how you use, how you retain, and all the things about your personal information and the PII, the personal identifying information, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the critical factors for them is to get your consent on what they are collecting and how they are using, so that there is a clear agreement between you and the company or app that is collecting it.
Right.
So this is more of a requirement, but as we all know that we don't have time to go through all those things. But as per the regulations, if you are not ready to give it, they cannot deny a service, right? They have to provide a service, but they may not have the full service because if you don't, like, say, if you don't turn on the location, they may not be able to give you a relevant service. But that's okay. But they cannot say that you cannot use the service.
Okay.
So one is about getting consent and getting the services that you use. The second thing on the specific stuff is they can give you I'm giving an example of the location based service, right? They can give you a location based experience for you once you give the consent. But can they use the same data and give it to someone else, right? That
Okay.
becomes a
Okay.
tricky, right? And you have not necessarily agreed. But what happens is most of the times, every company knows that there is a liability that they will go through. So if you see the consent document, they try to sort of cover everything under the sun, saying that we may use it for this, we may use it for that, we may use it for this, specific thing to make it better and stuff like that. So you may really, at some point, not have a legal liability to get the company in trouble. But at the
Okay.
same time, what happens is the data that is there with them could potentially be in the wrong hands. I think that is the biggest thing, right? If you see the breaches that are going on, at some point, right? I think Facebook got like 420 million records getting stolen. Equifax had like 143 million records getting stolen. So if you see, Marriott had like I think like 500 million records getting stolen, and including a lot of Indian job seeker site, and a lot of millions and millions of records are getting stolen. So
Okay.
the challenge is, irrespective of the two things we talked about, right? One is about you giving a consent on how your data is being used or the services being provided, and the second one about how they are going to use it for sharing with others, or for their own purposes legally. The third component is your data getting stolen by someone and misused for some other stuff, right? How much of content is available in the dark web, right, from Zoom, for example?
Right.
Right. So these are things where you need to be aware of, right? Anything you put it out potentially has the opportunity of getting it into the wrong hands. So
Right.
that is where I think the very important stuff is, as much as you can trust the agreement and the usage criteria and things like that, you also need to look into the worst case scenario, right? And wherever possible, you create the minimal necessary information to get the results that you need.
Mm-hmm.
And I will also say, right, again, this is my personal advice to anyone, and I think most of you are aware of it. If I'm a bad guy, I can create an app which actually has the most meaningful description for what that app can do, and
Mm-hmm.
I can put it there, and I can have any number of people. I mean, depending on how much I publicize, I get a number of users. In fact, if you, I don't remember the name of the app. I think there was a app based in Russia which says, "How will you look 20 years or 50 years from now?" And this is some cool features you give. In return, you land up getting a lot of things. And particularly when you are looking for free apps, I would only say be very, very careful, because most of the times they need maybe 2 data fields. They usually ask for 50 data fields, and they will say, I will get your OS, I will get everything possible, because no one knows what they can do with the data.
Mm-hmm.
And given in the current world, the data storage is very cheap, right? They can always say, hey, let me collect all these things, let me figure out what all I can do. And once you get it, and we have got companies like Facebook going through this whole Cambridge Analytica kind of a scenario where
Mm-hmm.
legally things can be taken and used for different purposes, right? You can still look into the legality part of it, but unfortunately, there's very thin line, when you're going through these kind of episodes, for the first time, right? I mean, it takes a lot of efforts, and that's why, to me, no regulation can solve our problem. But if it is your data and you think it is important, think of it, right? Would you put your credit card out in the road and say, it's your data, but it's my, my garden, I'm going to leave it? Probably not. So,
Mm-hmm.
use the same precautions. And there are certain things I can recommend as best practices that I do, right? Even from a concept of segmentation, right? you
Right.
know Even though you have bank accounts and things like that, use segmentation, right? Use only one account which you use for all the external stuff, and you park only the necessary money. Don't have all your savings in that account. Like, there are a lot of best practices that you can do, but
Okay.
it's extremely important for you to understand the possibilities of things that can go wrong and be prepared for it.
Great. Great. Now I want to come to the other side, which is more on, this now getting into the smart world, so to say. Okay. And there, the endpoints are enormous now. And it's not just about probably data stealing, it's about many, many vulnerabilities out there. If we talk of smart cities, so we have, probably our power infrastructure, other kind of infrastructure, they're connected and, open to so many vulnerabilities. So where are we right now as users? One, what should we be knowing about it? Okay. And second, in terms of, I would say the infrastructure and the security, level of security available right now. Uh, is there anything for us to still worry about, getting into a smart world?
Okay. So I think the smart connected world is real, right? Is it perfect? Probably not. And when I say real, there are a lot of things that can happen, because a lot of advantages that can happen because of the connected world, right? And we talked about the banking example. Like, if I need to pay you some money, it's very simple, right? I put your phone number and pay you, or put a UPI, I pay you. And it's as simple as that. And similarly, what has happened is the same services, like say in the smart city, right? You are talking about all these citizen services that can be automated,
Hmm.
right? And a lot of real world problems like traffic, power grids, all those things. In fact, the whole power grid is a very classic thing, right? Today, if
Hmm.
you see the internet is basically a bunch of routers switches all over the place, and you route the traffic so that you have this connectivity. You don't really know. You only connect to the nearest hub, and then you don't know where the traffic goes.
Hmm.
And similarly, I think in the power world, that's what the smart grid does, right? You can generate anywhere, you route the power wherever you have the demand, and make money out of it. So I think connecting all those things and solving real world problems is actually a great thing. And we have seen how citizen services have helped improve the lifestyle of the citizens, right? You can be in your house, renewing your what do you call that, your license, or you can do yoga at home. You can you have everything and anything available in your fingertips, right? You understand what's happening around you. You don't need to go somewhere, stand in line and things like that. So those are good things. And also the facilities, right? Even from the government perspective, right? Or even from the operator's perspective, they don't need to go through each and every, say, for example, if you're talking about public lighting, you don't need to go to individual light to see whether the bulbs are on or not. You have a dashboard which says, okay, these 4 bulbs are off in this lane, maybe send someone to do it. So you have apps that can actually detect potholes, right? So there are a lot of things where the governments and the agencies get information because of the connected nature of things. But where the challenge comes is, once you have connected, there are possibilities of things getting out of control, used for the wrong reasons, and managed differently. I think that's where we need to be extremely careful, right? So
Okay.
in the world of smart cities, what has happened is, we are talking about sensors, right? And I think you mentioned about laptops in the earlier part, and
Hmm.
mobile smart devices is getting better. The good thing about mobile devices, there is at least an identity, right? You
Right.
use your name or biometric or face recognition and things like that. When you talk about sensors, these are sensors which does not have much of an identity there. You can't run an antivirus software there. It's not like that powerful, right? You're looking at lots of data to come, and the only purpose in life is to just keep collecting data and sending it,
Hmm.
right? And now you have something which actually collects this like tons and tons of data to sort of figure out, is there some insights that you can drive out of it. So what really happens is, each one can become a weakest link, right? Each one can become a possible threat vector, and that is where it becomes very, very important for you to look into it. But as with any new and emerging technology, you are going to have some kind of a settling ground. So there are certain technologies which actually has made things much better,
Hmm.
and it's mature in the way it is getting deployed. There are certain technologies where there are teething problems, right? Maybe the scalability is not there. Maybe there are too many false positives, too many false negatives. So you cannot really run it as a robust system. So that's where you will have trial and error. But I think the intent for everyone to digitize and have the benefits of a digital world is immense. And we
Right.
all have seen this evident in the COVID scenario, right? BCP, we still have this discussion in our organization where BCP is like a business continuity program. You tell that, if something were to happen to the campus, right, can I have, a specific set of people who can run the business and continue without any disruption. And all of us had to switch to this full-fledged BCP mode since March or February, whatever time frame, right? And we are all able to do the work remotely. We are not going to office. So I think the benefits of digitization are not questionable, but at the same time, there are going to be challenges associated with the digitization. It's a newer way of doing things. There are going to be newer set of problems, right? I can access everything from my phone, but if I
Hmm.
lose my phone, oh my God, the same challenge, same advantages with someone who can, tap into my phone and, do all the things in an easier manner. So you need to be prepared for it. But I think, I don't think we are in the final, state or matured state in the IoT and with respect to the smart world. But I think a lot of progress that has happened has solved a lot of real-time situation, right? What do you do with the Google Maps? There is a traffic here, you take an alternate path. I think those are real-time, connected world, right? So there are advantages that are coming in, but at the same time, the more we are able to look into the possibilities of where things can go wrong and be prepared for it, I think we are going to be in a better shape. Because, I mean, a simple way to look at it is, any solution will have its own pros and cons.
Absolutely.
Nothing is going to be just only pros and like, yeah, it's like a risk reward, right? You have a higher risk, you have a higher reward. And if you want everything to be safe, then you need to keep everything in a locker and only go there and access it, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
know, yeah,
Today we are seeing one of the cons where we are still, kind of struggling to get Mishi here, of these virtual, kind of meets.
yeah,
While I'll keep on asking, so I have some more questions for you, but and team is, trying to get Mishi still. We want, if we could just have to her at towards end for just 10-15 minutes, that would be still great. But I would request audience, if any one of you has any question for Giri, you kindly just raise your hand, which is an icon on the right of your panel, and we can get you live to have your question asked to Giri directly. Giri, coming to one more specific issue, which is around standardization, and I would also, when I say standardization, I would also get onto the testing and quality control. Okay, now what is happening in this connected scenario? There is a set of devices which is very very standardized. Okay, not just globally, even in India, you have a set process, robust process, where you get that kind of assurance that, okay, I can use this device probably carefree, worry free. Okay, but then there are a bunch of these devices which are now coming up. You go to any of these e-com portals, you will find so many, say, IP cameras, for instance. Okay, and they are very very cheap. Okay, but you have this fear. Although they have also come through BIS certification and all that kind of thing, but that's what I understand, that's predominantly self certification mode and self declaration mode. uh, do you feel we need to have a setup uh, where we, some third party really authenticates how secure, how secure this is? Because I at times feel maybe the surveillance camera is just capturing a live feed of mine, I don't know. Okay, and then honestly, I do keep on checking at times my data consumption, just to see whether if something has happened, this device has taken some data from here. So do you feel there should be something like that in between?
correct. Okay. So, I, okay. So, in reality, I think there is a documented feature. I remember like a couple of years back when I think there was a TV. I don't remember the brand, but they announced a TV with a small camera in the top,
Right.
which can actually do this gesture-based this thing. But then they had to remove it because it was actually capturing more things, and and how it was used and all those things was being questioned, right? And we have had a lot of scenarios with with the cameras, with baby monitors, with all kinds of things.
Hmm.
So the reality is this, Faisal, right? I think number one, there are. So I think if I have to put it from this perspective, right, for you to really get things into a stable stuff, innovation has to be, given a free hand, right? Because you can't be restricting everyone to say, hey, you have to follow this, otherwise, you can't do it. So when you are in the peak of innovation, when you have to bring new products into existence, there are companies with smaller infrastructure who basically go with one idea, start building it up. They may not have the whole 9 yards about what security means. There are a lot of security companies which build products which doesn't even have the security components that they even talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we deal with a lot of startups which do not have the robust infrastructure like bigger enterprises to do that. But the thing is, they have great minds who can actually solve things. They can come with the coolest, sensor which can pull data. They have the smartest kind of a way to communicate. I'm very impressed with some of the smart devices, like including the light bulb. Right, nowadays you can get light bulbs which are 500 rupees, which actually changes color. You can schedule it. You can have the mood setting. Everything is there. But the reality is, are they doing things only with the lumen or doing something else? We don't know.
Something.
We don't even know there is a camera inside, right?
Yeah.
So reality is, the world is going through a pace of innovation that obviously has an unrestricted amount of things that happen, and that's where you will suddenly see, these kind of exposures getting reported, including Google Homes and Alexa saying that what all it does and stuff like that. So you will see a lot of active folks who are monitoring and reporting it out, but obviously not everything is going to be known. But let me tell you what's happening from an industry perspective, right? As things mature, there will be standardization, right? And I don't know how many of you have heard something called MUD, M-U-D. It stands for Manufacturer's Usage Descriptor. So in simplistic terms, what MUD stands for, and again, MUD is a conglomerate of a couple of companies, including Samsung, Cisco, and everyone working together to sort of say, number one, I don't know what this device is doing, but I can understand the intent of the device. For example, if it is a CCTV camera, I know the intent of this device is to communicate or pass the video signals, right? If it is sending an email, I know there is a problem. Right? So the intent of the device is very clear. So what happens is we are creating this descriptor for the device. It's not there yet. It's currently, I think we are in the, it's currently becoming a standard, RFC right now, right? So working with the IEEE. But what happens is you are able to create the descriptor for the device. So if I have a light bulb, so the expected behavior is it can be on, off. I can have a dim, dip, or dim or dim, whatever, dim or brightness. But I'm not expecting it to send a video.
Yeah.
So now, when you connect this device, because onboarding the device is a very big thing, particularly when it comes to IoT, right? We are talking about thousands and thousands of devices. You don't have the time to go and configure one at a time.
Yeah.
Talking about a user, you can say, this is the user ID, this is the password, this is the role, and all those things. But when you are connecting, 10,000 cameras for the city, right? You don't have the thing to define all these things. So what happens is you have this whole concept called intent-based networking. So the moment you connect the device, it knows that the intent of this device is to either send a video or send a light signal. So in which case, the network automatically limits it, right? It applies a policy which says you can only do this and nothing else. So a light would not be able to send an email or a video. It will be able to send anything which is allowed as part of the descriptor. So we hope once you have the standard, and then if any manufacturer says I'm abiding by the standard, similar to what we have for ISO and stuff like that, then you can trust the device much better. But the reality is, you have one version, and a lot of things can be changed in software. They get the next firmware, something else changes, we still don't know, right? So that's where you need to really look forward for watching out for these symptoms, and I think you have to be careful, right? I think particularly when you're taking a risk in terms of emerging technologies, newer, cooler things, you don't know how this data is going to be collected, how it's going to be used, and this is the risk reward model I was talking about, right? You need to sort of say, hey, if you're trying to use this, there is a possibility that someone might do it legally or illegally too, right? And if it gets breached, then maybe your data is getting compromised. So that's where I would say, there are standards getting evolved. We are not there yet. There are a lot of open ends. There are a lot of small companies who can claim anything at this point, right? It's purely a marketing document, and you can fall for it very easily.
Oh, great. One more, area I wanted to talk to you about is, this machine learning, deep tech, and all that. It is, all these are very, very data hungry. They need a lot of data from us. Now, and I as a user also find very, very, I find it very useful. All those kind of platforms which are AI driven, ML driven. So I am, yes, somewhere I am leveraging, benefiting from them. But then I don't want to give my data. Okay, so is there a way to balance this thing? I don't find a way out possible where I can balance it, because I want that functionality which that algorithm is delivering me or something like that. But at the same time, I want this data to be with me. So how is there a way at all to solve it?
So sometimes it's about what you want to give, right? So with respect to AI and ML, we are obviously talking about huge data sets, right? And in many cases, if it is a recommendation for you, right? In fact, I think I don't know if recently there was a tweet by someone who basically said, thanks to Indigo Airlines, you made me go to Calcutta and you shipped my bag to Mumbai or whichever place, and it says, thank you, brilliant. Okay, and he was like very sarcastic in terms of the message, and then there was a bot which was running it which says, thank you so much for the bag. It's like, So you have AML to understand the sentiment. You have the data to understand what you really like and what people like you like, so that they can recommend you things. They know that you do certain things every week. They recommend, okay, if you were to do it now, what will happen, right? So part of the deal is, if you have to get a personalized kind of information, they have to take your data, right? Otherwise they cannot personalize for you, right? Because there are a lot of different algorithms that go into making it more relevant to you, right? Because if you're trying to apply some generic stuff, it may not even connect with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, for example, if you're going to Amazon and saying, I'm buying this product, and or a camera, right? And then it says, people who bought it also bought this bag and the battery and things like that. There is a correlation between this activity and other things. So there is a personalized kind of a thing there. On the other hand, there are a lot of generic things that happen, right? If you talk about stock market and things like that, they don't need personalized data. They only need who is buying it, what is the other factors that impact. So there are algorithms which can actually tell you a pattern of what is happening without necessarily taking your personal data. But the biggest challenge I see, and again, in my view, AML is also an emerging field. There has been a lot of real world problems that it has been able to solve to a great extent. There are a lot of gaps in the whole process. At the same time, you can't trust it and say, this is, since it has told, I want to go and do it, right? I mean, it's not going to work that way, right? There are a lot of things that cannot be replaced, from a human perspective.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge with AML is, in many cases, it heavily relies on the learning. And if I have to give the example on the security world, right? If I have a software in my laptop and it keeps knowing what I'm doing, right? If it knows that I'm downloading maybe 5 GB of data every week, it first time it says there is an alert, hey, this guy is doing something unusual, he's downloading 5 GB of data. But if I do this consistently for a week or 10 days or a month, it thinks it's a normal behavior, right? So what happens is, you can use it, you have to continuously see how it is going to be relevant to you. So at the end of the day, you have an option, you have a choice in some areas, and some places you do not have an option, right? Like when you give the data to some of the, like, even for example, what happens with the Google or a Yahoo mail, they look into your mail to sort of see how can I give a better experience to you, right? The moment you have a airline booking, it immediately says, do you want me to put it in the calendar? It's actually a cool thing, right? Because you have a flight booking and you don't want to be reminding yourself. But it can't happen, and that's where part of the deal is, you have a little bit of a challenge between your privacy and your security in many cases.
Right.
There are some technologies which can happen, which can make things better, but I don't think you would be in a position to say that I will not give you any data, but you should still serve me the way I want, right? You should know what I would like. I mean, it's not going to work. The question is, where do you want to draw the line?
Okay. Okay. Great. Now coming to one more angle, which is more related to us being now, uh, you know, I would say almost every time online. Okay, and there is definitely a section within our society which probably is not that digitally aware. Okay, and we may at least think at times what we are doing, but there is a section which never thinks about, and I think it's also to do because they trust, they feel that the system is all clean. Okay, there's not going to be any harm. uh, do you feel like as we get more into this connected domain, and more and more people are brought into this internet and public networks, there is a need to somehow sensitize them, uh, probably have a very mass level, large level awareness campaign around them getting into understanding these things, kind of do's and don'ts. Is there something that should exist?
Sure, Faisal. So it is certainly a must. I think, as I was mentioning earlier, awareness is going to be extremely key for us to be successful. Because, I think we have a generation, and a lot of us, I think we all believe in trust, right? If I know you and you say something, like, buy this stock, I'm generally going to trust you and buy the stock, right? That's the kind of mentality that we have, right? Because we always, believe in what people say and things like that. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, right, today we live in a world where I get a message saying that, one of your contact has been identified as COVID positive. Now you need to click this link to do something.
Right.
How do I know whether it is right or wrong? What is that I need to look for? And if I'm not savvy, I may just go and click it, right? And in fact, even if I'm savvy, I may still click it because you don't want to miss out something which is, emotionally touching you, right?
Right.
So, so the reality is there has to be a very significant component of creating this awareness, because if you don't understand the flip side of what all could happen, you are going to fall victim, right? So the good thing that is happening, and again, I would still say it is happening in pockets, but I'm extremely thrilled based on the interactions I have had. We have a very robust Stay Safe online program for school kids,
Hmm.
college folks, right? In fact, I would say the current generation, the millennials, are actually more savvy because they are born with a mobile phone in their hand, so they know how to use it. But of course, there are different thought process, right? They don't believe in privacy per se, right? They feel that anything can be
Yeah.
let go, whether they are, everything is out in the open, right? But nevertheless, things like cyberbullying, things like phishing, things like, what all could happen with the data, the breaches. I think there's a lot more awareness going on, and
Mhm.
a lot of companies are using this as the corporate social responsibility, right? They are spending time with the schools, with the colleges, and in making sure that they are understanding the challenges that come in the world, right? A lot
Mhm.
of times, in fact, I think if the classic example is, if your kid is playing some game and then they expect some payment to be done, right? They just come and flash the phone in front of you, and with the facial recognition, the payment goes on. So they
Mhm.
don't really understand the implications of where all this could be a monthly payment, or it could be things that can be going off from the parents' account, right? So it's extremely important to bring the awareness. So I think there are some pockets of things that are happening, but the broader thing is not happening, right? Like if you look into the rural areas, right? In fact, I think the best part is nowadays people are even using the non-smartphone to activate a borewell, right? Like they can
Right.
turn on the borewell in their farm and things like that. So they still know what works and what doesn't work, but they are not necessarily understanding what all could go wrong, right?
Right. Right.
And I think it is extremely important for some. I don't think it's a government kind of a thing that can happen, but I think it's more of all the common minds should come together to make
Mhm.
this as a priority. And I know, when you're talking from a farm perspective, I think ITC did some things, with the Chowpathy stuff, where you have, you sort of have an education stuff in terms of how they can apply for loans, how they can look into the weather patterns and stuff like that. But there's a general awareness that is needed because now everyone has gone digital.
Right.
We also see the same thing with the ATMs, right? There are times
Mhm.
where people, don't know the language. They give the pin to someone, says, can you take it and give it? So there
Right.
is a high level of trust, but I think creating the digital awareness and what could go wrong and things like that, I think, that we probably need to do more.
Right. Uh, okay. So just an update. So fortunately, the issue has been found. But I think troubleshoot will take some time. So I promise we are going to have Mishi sometime soon, and we'll have a separate session with her. Just I'll have a last question to you, Giri. But before that, just requesting audience if there is any question, please
I
feel
saw,
free to ask.
I saw a hand go sometime back.
No, there is no hand. I'm just waiting if there is any question. Requesting audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand, or else I can ask my last question to Giri, which
Yeah.
is more of a not a question per se, but just checking if there is any question out there.
Maybe
Okay.
they have more questions for you instead of me.
Yeah, today I am accountable for sure. for many issues. Yeah, but we can't help it out. Sometimes technology definitely plays its role. So just to conclude this session, I wanted to understand from you. Uh, so as a security specialist, okay, one. something I want to understand for the security professionals. Okay, so I can see some security professionals also are there who have joined us. Uh, so what specific areas they can really kind of build their expertise in within the security domain? That's one. And second, uh, so if I have to measure it on a scale, so how secure you would you know uh, feel that we are right now within this digital ecosystem, maybe on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best. That's the last word I would want to have from.
Okay, so Faisal, I didn't get your first question.
Yeah,
Is it
yeah,
from
yeah,
a job perspective, or is it like, when you say what you want to learn, what is?
yeah. From career perspective. So what exactly should security professionals maybe specialize in, looking at the opportunities?
Okay, so it's a very, very broad question. So only thing I can
Yeah.
tell you is, the world has become more digital than ever. Security is going to be very integral, because in the past, like 10 years before, security was one of those things, if you have money, you will do something. Otherwise, hey, go and do something better, which
Hmm.
generates revenue, right? Today, in the world we are in, if you are not secure, you had a breach, your brand, your value, your company, everything goes for a toss. So I don't think security is an option at this point. In fact, at some point, I used to tell that, if you are in the security, your job is secure, right? It's almost like that, right? Because there are so many things happening in the world.
Okay.
And I will also tell you that, given that security is all across, it's not just, in fact, the analogy I would give is, if you are looking at a home, security is not about just having a lock in the front door, right? It's about everything. It could be from roof to windows to back door to everything possible. So you have to be all rounder for you to get everything in place. And there is a huge demand for security professionals in the world, right? I think we are talking about hundreds of thousands of people who need to be in security, but the industry is still looking for people. Even when in my own company, when I hire people, I'm looking for people who have the right attitude, right ability, and then they come learn on the job and deliver the results, right? So so there is a huge demand in terms of what it is. So coming to the things that you need to learn, it's going to be very difficult for me to prescribe a very specific topic, but
Okay.
logically speaking, there are many areas, right? If you're a developer, there are things that you need to be looking at it from a security angle, because whatever you do, could be the front door for things to go wrong. If you're in the network or infrastructure, there are a lot of things that you need to put in place. And if you're in the hardware, there is tons and tons of things that get involved in the security. So logically speaking, there are huge, tremendous opportunities that are available. And if you're an investigator, right, looking into forensics, looking into what is happening, and looking into user behavior, I would say you have variety of things. It's not limited to, okay, I need to be a network specialist, otherwise I can't be a security guy. So you
Hmm.
can be a security guy in, person in anything and everything that you do. And it is looking at things from a risk angle, not from, it's like you are enabling something, but you're also looking at what all could go wrong, right? How would a bad guy interpret this, right? So you're not
Hmm.
looking at, I need to have a huge window which can have a nice ventilation and things like that. Now you're looking at, okay, if some bad guy were to come, is it easy for them to get in and things like that? So you're looking at from a slightly different angle. You're an enabler, but you're also a secure enabler, right? That's what I would look at. But huge opportunities. I think if there are tons and tons of certifications available, including CASSP, which actually is the master certificate that you can get to sort of prove that you are a security practitioner, right? A
Hmm.
lot of it's an exciting field, right? If you understand what risk is, because it's one area where you are always on your toes, right? You will enjoy every moment of things. There's a lot of excitement around what all could go wrong, because anything can go wrong, right? As I'm speaking, a lot of things have gone wrong, right? Only thing is, in many times you may not even know this, right? And you may not even know, on an average we are talking about 100 days for the for the time to detect an
Hmm.
incident, right? There are a lot of challenges in this world. So if you are loving challenges, and if you want to be part of how to solve things, this is the place to be.
Okay.
When you look at are we secure or not, I think this is a very clear thing that no one can tell that they are secure, right? So I think the fact here is, are you doing the right level of due diligence? Are you prepared for anything, right? And we always go with the concept of 95-5.
Hmm.
There are things that we know will happen. There are things that we know there are solutions to handle it. You basically make that as part of your 95% of standard solution.
Okay.
The 5% is always anticipate, because what did not happen yesterday may happen today. And do you have the processes, technologies, and people to deal with it? And in a scale, I don't think we will ever be at five, because there are many opportunities for anything to go wrong. At the end of the day, you just need one person to just accept a mail and the whole thing can go for a toss, right? I mean, it's
Hmm.
as simple as that. But I don't want to leave with with a dull note of, okay, is it like one, or is it, two or five, or whatever it is. But I'm going to say that the place where we are in, there are a lot of technological advancements that has happened that has actually put us in a much better position. What we could not do 2 years back, we can do it today.
Hmm.
So as the solutions have come in, the problems have also increased, but there are new solutions that are making these things better. Like, you talk about user entity behavior analytics, you talk about zero trust network, you talk about intent-based networking, you talk about EDRs, right? The endpoint detection and response. There are a lot of advancements that has happened. So you are better equipped, but still there are gaps, right?
Gaps. Hmm.
I think the way I would end is, we are actually beneficiary of all the things that has happened in the digital world, in the connected world. But we need to be aware of things that can go wrong and be prepared and constantly, innovate and make things better, so that we try to, get the advantage side of the whole innovation. And as we learn things that go wrong, you keep fixing it and move on, right? Rather than saying that we do have problems, right? We will have problems, and I think we are problem solvers at the end of the day. So we continue to detect and solve it. And it's a great time to be in. I think the technology has actually solved the current situation with even COVID.
Right.
The whole world is working from home. I don't think we had that option before,
Hmm.
and we have come out successful. And I think we will continue to use technology in the ways unimaginable to make it beneficial to all of us.
Right. 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 Uh, I think with that we come to an end, Giri. Thanks a lot for your time, and I'm sure yes, we definitely miss Mishi today, and we wanted to have her view essentially from policy and regulation point of view. I'm promising everyone we are going to get her soon, and she is also equally feeling very bad. She has been messaging me meanwhile how bad it is, but I think there was some network configuration issue which didn't let her in. So next time we'll keep that sorted out.
Yeah,
Uh,
we miss her too.
nevertheless, thanks a lot for being here, and I really appreciate audience for staying back uh, and to hear Giri. Uh, it might have sounded at times too technical, but that's what security is about. I think it's one of the most technical issues and topics to talk about. I thank you all for being here today with us. We will be continuing with this international series edition where we will be having more, speakers from across the world to share their, thoughts and insights about the topics which we will be talking, which are going to be definitely very, very interesting for all of you. With that, we come to conclude this session, and thank you everyone for being here.